Prime-time local news, serving the Lakeland and Midwest regions.
And looking at local news, today is National Indigenous Peoples Day, and our Callan Dunlop found out what was going on here in the border city.
Held at the Lloydminster Native Friendship Center, a day-long event took place in honor of Indigenous Peoples Day. The event showcases the culture with powwow dancers, as well as food and an opening prayer.
This is actually our day. Well, a day for us every day, but we actually get to share it with everyone. This is an awesome setup. This has been here before my time. We just kind of carry it on. It's getting bigger, actually, and I'm really happy about that.
In the spirit of reconciliation, everyone in the community was invited. The day highlights all aspects of Indigenous heritage and history, something Indigenous people can appreciate.
I think Canada's going into the right path. They're really doing a lot with their reconciliation and everything else. I've been seeing a lot more, but honestly, I think it's just more of the people. The people have to get out there, get involved in our community.
Callan Dunlop, Primetime, Local News.
And some big news now for a few Holy Rosary High School students. Signings were held in the Holy Rosary High School gym earlier this week, as some are continuing on in their athletic career and other plans as well. Our Shelby Clark has more in this week's edition of Beyond the Classroom.
These students have started their journeys after high school by signing on the dotted line. With joining their sports teams in university, they will also attend apprenticeships and programs in the fall.
Well, it's going to be super good. I'm going to be on the lightweight team out there. And so at Victoria, they prioritize the double and the 4 for the lightweight team. So hopefully my middle of the first year and start of the second year, I should be on the lightweight 4 and having a good time out there. Yeah.
Having a plan for their careers and athletic goals, these students are even more motivated to figure out their next step.
I'm looking towards is finish 4 years of my degree there and then go on to become a lawyer and pass the LSATs, and then hopefully go to U of T Law there. Swimming, I would really like to see just how far I can go. They got new coaching not long ago, and I've really enjoyed being under his company, going to their recruit camps, as well as their sprint coach. And I think that they can really push me to be the best that I've ever been and can get me farther than I have ever dreamed of going.
The students are excited for what's to come after all their hard work. They want to give credit to all the Holy Rosary coaches and teachers for helping them achieve their goals.
Yeah, no, it's going to be great to really show what a small town's all about and just show what we can do down in Lloyd.
It definitely, it just gave me chills, thinking about, moving up from level to level. I started in Pee Wee in grade 4, and now I'm going to actually playing on, a big team. It's holy. It's, definitely going up level to level, and then seeing, the big coaches recognizing you. It's man, it's amazing. It definitely makes me happy and really excited to keep moving forward.
And that's it in this week's Beyond the Classroom.
Lakeland College's doors are open for program info sessions on March 3rd and 10th. RSVP now at lakelandcollege.ca/info sessions.
Football Alberta has assembled its under-18 team for the Football Canada Cup, and an athlete from Lloydminster will be playing for Team Alberta. Our Thomas Wildman has more.
Over 400 players tried out for the team, and after 3 rounds of camps, the final roster of 40 has been created, and Holy Rosary's Ethan Granum will be part of the running back core.
The competition was great. It was a great learning experience, helped me learn a lot on what to do, what to focus on. The team, everyone is great. We're all great. We're not that close yet, but we have 2 weeks together. We'll get really close, and it's going to be a great experience.
One of his coaches from Holy Rosary is very excited for Granum and believes he will do great things with Team Alberta and the rest of his career.
His football IQ is unbelievable. It's unmatched. His athleticism, His knowledge of the game and his just coachability is really awesome to see, and it's a major part of his success. I mean, it's a great opportunity for him. I know he had a tough season this year with a season-ending injury. To come back from that and be able to, make U18, it's fantastic to see. It's awesome for him to get another opportunity to be able to go play and showcase his athleticism and his skill.
The tournament will have teams from every other province come to compete, and Granum is very excited to take on those teams as it's a new opportunity for himself.
Very excited, actually. I've never actually seen any other province play football, so it's going to be nice to see how they can play.
Team Alberta will look to try and capture their first gold since 2007 when the Canada Cup takes place in Edmonton this July. Thomas Wildman, Primetime, Local News.
And now it's time for us to check in once again with Shelby Clark, who has another look at your evening weather forecast.
Thank you so much again there, Mr. Jace Mackey. Yes, now taking an extended look at your weather forecast, we will be starting off with our central zone of the provinces. We have warmed up slightly on our Alberta side as we have been seeing some temperatures getting closer to that 20-degree mark. We have some that are still slightly cool. 10 degrees over in Rocky Mountain House, so we have those 14s in Jasper and Red Deer, so it's nice to see that Jasper is starting to warm it back up, especially after those crazy conditions they have been seeing. And then we start to warm up from there as we go a bit higher up. We're looking at those 16s and 17s in most spots, and then we have 18 degrees in Athabasca. Cold Lake is just sitting at 13. So not looking too bad on our Alberta side. Now as we go over to our Saskatchewan side, they're starting to match with us a little bit more with those temperatures and conditions from what we have been seeing throughout the week. Usually the Saskatchewan side has been seeing slightly warmer with temperatures past that 20-degree mark. And now they are seeing those teen temperatures while most spots are just sitting at 18 degrees on the side. Then we have 12 in Meadow Lake and 15 over in Prince Albert. So looking slightly cooler now that they have cooled down to match with us more. Going over to our northern zone, they have cooled down again here on our Saskatchewan side. Flin Flon is still seeing the warmest condition compared to the rest as they are still seeing past that 20-degree mark. They were looking closer to that 30-degree mark yesterday and earlier on in the week, but now they have cooled down slightly, just sitting at 21, and then we start to cool down even more from there. Looking at 15 in South End now, while it is 11 and 12 in most of these spots, and then we have Stony Rapids now at that single digit with 9 degrees. Going back over to Alberta side here, they have, flipped the script. They switched sides pretty much with Saskatchewan side from what we have been seeing throughout the week. They are now seeing the warmest conditions compared, as most spots are now seeing past that 20-degree mark. 20 degrees for Slave Lake, while there's 22-21 with Peace River and Grand Prairie. Then the warmest condition here is High Level with 24 degrees. And then we have the coolest with 14 and 18 in Fort McMurray and Fort Chipewyan. Now going over to our southern zone. They are matching with us a little bit more in our central area, surprisingly. Usually they do see slightly warmer conditions, especially, but now they have been seeing slightly cooled down conditions throughout this week, and it seems that that is continuing on. 14 degrees for both Calgary and Banff, and then we start to warm up with Lethbridge and Coronation at 18, just a few digits under that 20-degree mark, and then Medicine Hat is now hitting 20 degrees. And going back over to our Saskatchewan side here, they are still looking quite warm, I would say. They have been seeing a nice warm conditions compared to the rest throughout the week on this side in our southern zone, and they have cooled down slightly, especially with Kindersley now just at 18, but the rest are still just hitting 20 degrees. And then we have Yorkton and Estevan still looking slightly warmer with 22, so just a couple digits ahead of the rest. Now looking at some overnight evening lows as we look at places on this list in our surrounding area, we will be looking at those single digits once again for tonight. We seem to be seeing probably that continue on throughout the week as we are kind of cooling down, with our daytime highs. So a low of 6 in most of these spots with Provost and Paradise Hill expected, a low of 7 and 8 with Meadow Lake, Bonnyville, and then we have a low of 9 with Isla Cross tonight. So we all will be seeing those single digits tonight and more of a clear and calm night. We were hopefully going to be seeing some precipitation, but it seems we're going to be kind of expecting more of a calm and clear night and not seeing too high of chances of any rainfall. Looking at our hourly forecast for our Thursday here in the border city, we are expecting to warm up slightly as we are still starting off at that single digit right off in the morning. And then as we head on through the afternoon, we will be reaching around 19 and hitting that 20-degree mark. And then we are expected to hit around 21, 22 for our daytime highs. So we definitely will be warming up for tomorrow compared to what we have been seeing throughout the week. because after tomorrow we will be seeing some scorchers. 26, 27 for Friday and Saturday as we head off into the weekend. So be prepared. We have much sunnier days ahead. Make sure to drink lots of water and use that sunscreen. Kind of seems funny as we weren't really needing that this week, but now we're going to have to bust those back out again. And as we end off the weekend at 24, we will be continuing those warm conditions into next week on Monday and Tuesday with 25, 26, and hopefully expecting a little bit more rainfall next Wednesday. And that's all I have for now. RJ Smacky will have more news coming up after the break.
This is the moment we've all been waiting for. The most exciting announcement of our whole year. It's time to reveal the top 10 shortlists for the World's Best School Prizes 2023.
New Miriam School has made the top 10 shortlist for World's Best School in the environmental category. And Danielle Erickson, the school's principal, joins me to talk a little bit more about this recognition. First of all, how exciting is it to hear the news that New Miriam School is in that top 10?
Myself and my two assistant principals, Robert Timofeychuk and Alyssa Kalinchuk, we found out weeks before we were able to announce to the kids. But there was a hush hush put on it. Nothing could come out on social media or anything because the World's Best School Prizes wanted to make the announcement so that everyone at once kind of found out across the globe, because that's the piece here. There are schools in our category that are from Spain and the UK and the US and Brazil and I mean schools that are doing amazing work all over the world. And so for us to be recognized in our small K to 12 school for the work that we've been doing and to be put on the same level as some of these other schools was just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and you said it right there. It's a list of schools from all across the world. I know we've at Primetime Local News has gone out and covered some of the exciting and cool learning opportunities going on at the school. But can you talk a little bit about what's happening there? So this is the environmental category. So what kind of stuff has been going on that the judges and the people involved with this saw that led them to put you guys in that top 10 shortlist?
Absolutely. So for the last 6 years, our school has sort of shifted focus on some of the things that we do, especially some of the option classes like shop, and have made some adjustments to try to do a couple of things to try to engage students in their learning and in their option classes and engage them in their learning, but then also tie everything that we're doing in these shop classes and option classes into their science, math, English, and social studies curriculum. Because that's a question we hear a lot from students is, why do I have to learn this? When am I ever going to use this? And there's so many of those kind of gems in each of those core subject areas that if we can pull it into something like shop that's a little more engaging, the students just would buy into the projects. And so about 6 years ago, we started with our first A+ for Energy grant that we applied for through a group called Inside Education. And I have to give them props because I don't think we would be where we are today without some of the funding from the grants that they provided. And their grant had to focus on schools doing projects that focused on energy conservation or generating green energy, and just teaching kids about where our energy comes from. And so we started with that project with a greenhouse that we wanted to be able to extend the life of the greenhouse. So it could be opened earlier in the spring and later in the fall without these huge temperature fluctuations. And we wanted to do it without using any electricity tied to the grid. And so the students did lots of passive solar heating with big black rain barrels that we then filled with water, and talked to the kids about how water has a high specific heat capacity. And so it would absorb the sunlight during the day and then release it at night. And that's just one very small piece of what that project was like, and some of the learning that ties in from science curriculum right up through till grade 12. And so we started with that project, and then actually for the last 6 years have received consecutive A+ for Energy grants We received our seventh for the next school year as well. And all of the projects have kind of that energy focus. So we also built refurbished old golf carts into net zero vehicles, and sold two of the golf carts that were repurposed, and they were reupholstered, and the students welded and rebuilt the frame and the battery box and attached solar panels to the roof. And we sold two of those golf carts to the county of St. Paul. I believe they're using them in their municipal campgrounds, which is pretty cool to see them driving around when you go there and go camping. And so it's just another place where the kids get a chance to see their learning and something that they've done impacting the community. And you get more of that engagement and more of that buy-in to what we're doing at the school, instead of having to answer that question all the time of why are we doing this? So because we have so many different projects going on, and because we've made it an entire school cross curricular, cross grade connections, I think that's a big reason. I think that's a big reason why we were able to be shortlisted. We had an interview earlier this spring with the World's Best School Prizes judge, or interviewer, I guess. And at the end of the interview, he looked through the camera at us and he said, "I've never seen this before." And that was kind of a neat feeling to have as this school, that we think that we're doing some pretty amazing things, but for someone who's talked to schools from all over the world to say, "I've never seen this before," was pretty amazing.
Yeah, and they're seeing schools all over the world, so to have that kind of recognition there is incredible. I know I saw that the prize, or they'll announce the winner in September here, and even if you don't win, it's still great to get that recognition. But talk a little bit about what's next. Is there any other projects in the works at New Miram School? It seems like you're always doing something, and I also wanted to say too, just that hands-on aspect seems so valuable to the students as well.
Yeah. So as far as projects we have on the go for next year, our A Plus for Energy project next year slows down some of the physical building pieces a little bit. We've got quite a number of students who are really interested in video editing and interviewing, very similar to what we're doing here. And so our project for next year actually focuses on uh, the kids developing some kind of a documentary series with a series of videos about the things that we've done, but not just to brag about the things that we've done, but to teach other people on social media, or their parents, or a resource we can maybe share with other schools. We have a couple other irons in the fire. I might not mention just yet because we're still very much in the beginning planning stages, but there are always a lot of things going on here at Burnham School. Well, that's very exciting. And that just means we'll have another opportunity to check in with you guys when we find out what else is going on. Thank you so much for your time today, Danielle, and congratulations on this great recognition.
Furniture set and design supplied by Furniture Gallery, downtown Lloydminster.
We are back with Stephanie Dobson for another episode of Healthy Thriving Family After Divorce. And this week, Stephanie, we are continuing our tips on how to be resilient, basically, when going through separation and divorce. So we went through the first 5 last week. We're going to wrap it up this week. And we're going to start with your tip number 6, which is learning to communicate effectively as co-parents. So let's get into that.
Well, basically, whether you're separated or not separated, effective communication is a learned skill. It's most of the time when people separate, one of the big reasons I find that people separate, and sometimes even if it's not a reason, it's a problem during the relationship, is communication. So if it wasn't great during the relationship, we know that we have to get some skills after the separation to increase and improve our communication. So my recommendation is to get in, first of all, is to get into a routine about how to best communicate about certain topics. So if you know that it's something really quick, you might want to do it by text, but you might want to also look at organizing your communication by doing things like logging into an app, right? So there's a Google search, of course, will bring up lots of them. My favorite, if people want to look into it, it's called Our Family Wizard. It's a great app. I have, for my own clients, I have an e-learning platform, and inside of there, I have books that you can download, and one I've written that's called Effective Co-Parent Communication. So I believe that the foundation of all effective co-parenting relationships is communication. So if you can get better at that and focus on that, read about it, learn about it, especially in the context of separation and divorce, you'll be well on your way.
All right, and the next tip is getting some consistency between households. Why is it important to make sure that it's basically the same between the two when dealing with parenting?
Well, we know that children thrive off of consistency. And tip number 2, we talked about the routine being the parenting schedule being consistent and coming up with a calendar. In this particular tip, we're talking more about the consistency between homes. So we know that kids going from one home to the other, that exchange in and of itself can actually be a really stressful time and a stressful experience for kids. Sometimes it's because the actual exchange creates conflict between the parents, but it can also be because I'm going from mom's house to dad's house and I have to remember, okay, what are the rules at the other parent's house, and what's the bedtime, and what's the electronics rules. So it's helpful to have some consistency between the two homes so that it makes it a lot easier for kids. So I'll give you some examples: bedtimes, electronics rules, curfews and screen time limits, homework rules, electronics at mealtime rules, nutrition guidelines, right? We're not eating McDonald's every day at one parent's and then have to eat fruit and vegetables at the others. Chore expectations, hygiene. I had clients where I talked for a whole hour about toothbrushing, and discipline, and just avoiding too much differences, because sometimes the kids, not only do they have trouble between two homes, but they may start to favor one household. They might put the McDonald's household over the vegetables household. So we don't want to have that happen.
All right, and the next tip is liaise with the professionals that surround the children. Why is this important, Stephanie?
Well, we know there's lots of people in our children's lives. It takes a village, right? So to raise the kids, and there's doctors, there's dentists, there's counselors, there's educators, there's all different people that are going to be helping our kids grow and develop as they go through their childhood, and of course that's whether you're separated or not. But if we can somehow make sure that we let those third parties know, the people that are in our kids' lives, let them know what's going on at home, and make sure that hopefully you can have both parents that are actually interacting with these professionals and say, please let us both know what's going on with the kids, or can we have a meeting with you as parents? We want to know, what do you notice? So that we can make sure that everyone's on the same page about the health and well-being of your kids.
Okay, and the next one is to choose an out-of-court negotiation process. This seems to me obvious why you would want to stay, out of court if you can, but please expand on that.
Well, in the families that I deal with, I have an exclusively out-of-court practice, which means I help people to resolve things by agreement outside of the courtroom, as opposed to having a judge rule and provide them with an answer. Now, I always say that it's important to find the appropriate dispute resolution process. Not just, it might be in your particular situation, it is more effective to be in court. Maybe it's cheaper, it's faster because of some dynamic. But I always say it's important at the very beginning to think about process. Most people, when they first call us, they don't know that process is even a thing, right? Or that it's even important, or that they could be in the driver's seat about it. So the adversarial process, which means the court process, the litigation process, tends to escalate the conflict between two parents naturally, just because of the process. So if we can stay out of that process, choosing what's called a non-adversarial process, so I mentioned before mediation, collaborative divorce, what we try to do in those processes is we try to bridge the gap between parents rather than widening the gap. So automatically, just by choosing those processes, if both of you are willing to engage, that's the key. You have to both be willing to come to the table for those processes. We can usually help to keep the conflict low between the two of you, which again, at the end of the day, if this is about resilience for kids, this is good for kids.
All right, and our last tip, Stephanie, is just that, is reducing the conflict between the co-parents. And I know you touched on it a bit, but just expand on that, please.
Yes. So there's been lots of research that's been done. I mean, we knew it beforehand, but we've actually got scientific evidence now that there's this thing called toxic stress. And there's lots of different ways that toxic stress can be created, but one of them can be high conflict households or high conflict parents, or exposure to high conflict parents. We know that scientifically, toxic stress can be detrimental to children's brain development. So that means that they would be at greater risk of developing emotional, social, and behavioral issues. So in my mind, when you're looking at moving into two homes, if we can reduce that toxic stress, meaning reduce the conflict between the parents, reduce the conflict in the household, then kids are able to experience two healthy and low conflict households moving forward. And it gives your kids the opportunity to grow up healthy, well-adjusted, and resilient.
All right, Stephanie. Well, great information as always. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be back
Thank
to
you.
chat again next week.
Great. Thanks, Stacey.
And that's all the time we have for this edition of Primetime Local News. Thank you all so much for joining us on this Wednesday night. Have a great evening, and we'll see you again tomorrow.